Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen. Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another jam-packed daily cryptocurrency market update. I'm wishing you all a wonderful week so far. And if you are new to the channel and finding yourself on my videos for the first time today, don't forget to check out that subscribe button, because we drop an update just like this one every single day at 1 p.m. UK time to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space, but also the broader markets. And it's going to be an interesting day for the broader markets with the US CPI to come out about half an hour after the release of this video. And we've got a lot to talk about. Yesterday, we were addressing the idea of a short-term pullback. Remember, we are very bullish on Bitcoin in the mid to long term. Short term, we're talking days into potentially a week. Mid to long term, weeks plus, we ultimately think that we are now in a broader uptrend, that we are one of the first people to spot back when Bitcoin was at 16K. So we do have a technical target for Bitcoin that sees it run to around about 150K. We've got macro reasons, we've got micro reasons, we've got cross-market reasons to be bullish on the crypto space, and we are bulls. But in the short term, I'm a little bit cautious. Certainly wouldn't be entering any kind of a leverage long here. Despite us singing that tune yesterday, Bitcoin did go from 58K and smashed through, or 48K and smashed through the 50K region. However, that's a big key number. It's a big, nice, round 50K number. I'm still on the side of you may want to consolidate and kind of rest and have maybe a small pullback. I think Bitcoin perhaps is warranting that on its own technical merit. Also, if you look at crypto stocks and you look at the stock market, it does look like they're going to take a little bit of a break from what is a broader uptrend. And we still are singing that tune. But we have a lot to get into. We're going to be showing you all that. We'll be addressing what's obviously taking place today in regards to the CPI. I want to start the video off, though, however, with a clip of Michael Saylor. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Michael Saylor. I think a lot of his arguments don't make much sense. I think he's took pretty much a dead company and bet it on Bitcoin, and it's worked for him, and you can't give him anything but credit for that. He is to the tune of billions in unrealized gains at this point, and the HODL mentality for him has worked, and really his whole approach to Bitcoin is understanding the fiat systems and the expandatory nature of them, and that's why Bitcoin, I believe, has been such a success. It really did address a problem. The origins of it we're a little bit sort of skeptical on. However, let's dive into that clip and start the video off with a clip of Michael Saylor. We'll look at what he's talking about, because right now, 12.5x more Bitcoin is being bought through ETFs than are being essentially released onto the market. And there is a supply crunch coming. You've got the halvening coming up. We'll look at how Bitcoin typically interacts into a halvening. We'll couple that with where we're at today. I kind of think you're going to have a bit of a rest. We said that yesterday, only for it to shoot up and for us to be 180 degrees wrong on the daily time frame. However, still cautious, and that's coming from looking at multiple different markets. But we'll address all that. Let's dive into the clip of Michael Saylor, and then we'll get into the rest of what we've got to get into.
Your outlook for Bitcoin, and then we'll jump into earnings.
I think a lot of this is just indicative of the popularity of Bitcoin as an asset class. It's now the world's most popular investment asset. It's novel, it's digital, it's global, it's unique, and it's uncorrelated to traditional risk assets because it doesn't come with exposure to any given country, currency, company, quarterly result, product cycle, competitor, not to weather, not to war, not to an employee base or supply chain. And so that makes it a natural addition to the portfolio of a responsible investor. There's 10 years of pent-up demand. People have been waiting for these ETFs, and finally, mainstream investors are able to access Bitcoin. And I think that's what's driving the surge of capital in the asset class. And initially, there was a rebalancing as people were moving capital between the futures market and the miners and MicroStrategy and the ETFs. But following that rebalancing, I think the assets found its footing. And now people are beginning to realize that there's 10 times as much demand for Bitcoin coming in through these ETFs as there is supply coming from the natural sellers who are the miners.
Yeah. So again, as much as we disagree with Michael Saylor on many things, he is right in regards to not only Bitcoin being a responsible investor's, it's got a place in a responsible investor's portfolio. If you understand portfolio management, you'll understand that actually you want to diversify for the sake of basically reducing your tail risk. You want to have uncorrelated assets that will not only increase your return, but they'll minimize your downside, and Bitcoin very much falls into that category. We're going to see this over the coming years move by portfolio managers into Bitcoin as a way to diversify and thus gain the benefits of diversification in a portfolio. It's a very uncorrelated asset, like he says. We think he's 100% right on that. And he's 100% right on the supply shot. You know, we are going into the halvening. Talking about the halvening, let's take a look at it from a technical point of view, and you can see the quite frankly outstanding thing is that Bitcoin is literally following this 4-year cycle theory perfectly that all centers around the halvening, as you can see there in the vertical lines. And we are approaching one. And typically Bitcoin lulls into it. However, and maybe this is how 50K is going to react. You know, it's also the 618 level, or round about the 0618 level. I'm cautious on the short term, guys. You guys know we are bulls. We're some of the bullish people, most bullish people in the room. We're some of the earliest people to flip on Bitcoin. And we do think it is now on the path to 150K. However, you know, be careful. And yesterday we did look at on the smaller time frames, and we're going to get even smaller, and we're going to put it on auto. You know, Bitcoin was setting up a small head and shoulders here around our key technical level of 52K, which is what we were predicting in 2023, towards the start of 2023, and we started to see the signs of that head and shoulder forming. You can see that's target was 45,600. You can see it interacted with that level. And then we had a bigger head and shoulders. You had a little squeeze here that ultimately saw a target of around about 48,600. You ran into there. That's perfectly where you interact. If you think technical analysis doesn't work, keep up to date with the channel, guys. We will turn you into believers in technical analysis, because it does work for me. I've made a very good living off of it, and I think you guys can do the same thing. And then when we were looking at a little bit of downside here, it did the 180 and the opposite, and it absolutely shot up. So even though we were looking at the potential for downside based on a number of things that we're going to come to in just a second, you know, we did say don't bet against this trend. I wouldn't enter shorts in this environment, but I wouldn't have leveraged long here. In this instance, we'd have been wrong. However, we'll see what Bitcoin does here. You are at 50K and you are wicking into it. We'll see what happens. You know, you really need to break this with momentum. We need to see on the weekly time frame this head and shoulders pattern being completed with a break on volume. And right now, of course, that volume isn't applicable because we are only on Tuesday. So we'll see what comes towards the end of the week. Today is going to be a really significant day. But before we address that, we were looking at things like Coinbase, which acted exactly as we expected it to. However, there are gaps on the Coinbase chart, and these typically get filled. And if this comes down, what's crypto going to do in that environment when Bitcoin's ran into the 50K range? So the reasons why we're cautious on the short term, days into weeks, potentially up to a couple of weeks, is because of this stuff. It's all technical. Even though I think you're going to have a good CPI print. And we did say you're going to get sub 3. Now everyone's sort of starting to sing that tune. You also have the likes of MicroStrategy, another stock that is on its way to our target. You are getting gaps in this also. These typically do get filled, but not always. You do have anomalies, of course. And then something like Marathon, another stock of ours. You can see you do have, albeit smaller, but applicable gaps here that may want to get filled. And often you will get a double retest, just like what Bitcoin did down here. You know, 1, 2. Are we going to see something like that? Cautious in the short term, guys. Not bearish. Cautious, not wanting to enter any kind of leverage longs at this point. To couple that, also, you've got the stock market, which has had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive weeks of upside. When the stock market runs a high, you can see typically it will go on and then it will pull back into it. Go on and pull back into it. Go on and pull back into it. This was rather brutal with the whole March 2020 event, but you can see break up and pull back into it. So with this going into the halvening, little bit cautious, guys, on the short term, mid to long term, stick to the plan. Any dips we get, in my opinion, are for accumulating. Moving on to the broader macro, let's dive into, of course, what's taking place today, and that is the CPI for the United States. Core CPIs month on month, core CPIs, or normal CPIs month on month, and CPIs year on year. So the forecasts are now coming in at 2.9. The prior one was 3.4. We do actually expect this to come sub 3. And I think that's technically good for the markets, which is contradictory to where I'm at right now in regards to the short term. So remember, long term, we're bulls. There's no discrepancy there, right? Short term, days into potentially a couple of weeks, I'm uncertain. You know, I wouldn't go rushing in leveraged here. But the broader trend is an uptrend. We've got 150K target for Bitcoin. We've got a broader thesis on the dollar, and everything aligns up. It's just a case of, you know, preserving your capital. And from an investment point of view, all you need to do is be on the side of the trend. And we think that The vast majority of people in crypto shouldn't even bother trying to trade. But we are traders, and in the short term, I am looking at 50K, big round number, lots of gaps on crypto stocks, stock market been doing very well. Might want to pull back a little bit. Gold potentially looking like it might want to come down slightly, and the dollar, we'll see what happens with it, and we'll see how CPI affects the market. But on that note, we'll keep you up to date, of course, on a daily basis on this channel. If you're not already subscribed, consider doing so. Don't forget to go and follow me over on Twitter if you want to become a Patreon and get my thoughts on a daily basis. And have meetings with me. Also, you'll unlock my portfolio. Do check the link in the description. And on that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Thank you very much for watching. We will see you all in the next one.